Hey, Mark back with you. I wanted to do a quick video and show you how we travel in business class, lay flat seats on basically every single one of our international flights from the US to Europe to Asia and back home again, and how we typically do it for as low as $11 on every single international flight that we take. I'm going to go ahead and share that strategy with you right now. Please do our small but growing channel a favor and hit like on the video, and even more importantly, subscribe to the channel so we can share more strategies like this with you in the near future. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We've had 14-hour flights here recently, and trust me, the difference between being able to lay out and sleep in a business class or first class cabin versus being in economy is a worlds of difference. You're going to wake up and feel so much better after that flight. But personally, I don't want to spend $3,000 to $6,000 per ticket on these flights. There's really great strategies that we can use in order to take advantage of credit card reward points. I estimate that over the last few years, we've easily saved over $120,000 on what these seats would have cost us. And I'm going to show you in just a moment a few examples of some of the tickets that we used recently, as well as some bookings that we have here. Then I'm going to show all of you how you can get started right away. Some really simple strategies that I use to find the best flights, as well as to save myself countless hours actually finding the best flights to go ahead and use my points on, because that's been one of the hardest things to do over the years is once you have the points, how do you get the maximum amount of value out of them, as well as how you can get yourself jump started with tens of thousands of points fairly easily by playing this credit card reward game. If you want to really get a lot of distance and mileage out of reward points, you don't have to fly business class. You can certainly book yourself an economy or premium economy, a lot of very low cost flights out of this, not to mention a whole bunch of other great perks and benefits such as airport lounge access, go to an airport lounge, use the internet, get a free meal in between a 3, 4, 5 hour layover. You could spend hundreds of hours trying to become a master at this. And a lot of you probably, like me, don't have the time for that. So I want to shortcut it all for you to show you what's possible. Let me give you an example of some of the flights that we've taken. This is a flight we have scheduled for later in the year. It's going to take us back from Amsterdam back to Dallas Fort Worth. We're going to go in business class from Amsterdam to Washington, D.C., and then first class from Washington to Dallas Fort Worth. We spent a total of $200 plus credit card points. So as you can see, that flight that cost us $200 out of pocket would actually cost, if we paid without our mileage redemption, $8,663. So we saved a grand total of $8,463 on just that redemption alone. Pretty amazing. This next one was a business class flight that we're taking in December. We're going to be flying from New York JFK to Madrid to Spain. And we're going to be connecting to a flight to Zurich. So basically, we're going from New York to Zurich in business class on both flights. It cost us a grand total of $289 out of pocket. And we only used for both flights under 100,000 points or miles. Remember this number, by the way, because I'm going to be showing you how to get 150,000 points potentially with just 2 credit cards. And that would pay for easily this business class flight, possibly even 2 more. And do you know how much this ticket would normally cost me? Out of pocket, this ticket would have cost me $3,665. And the reason I'm using the flexible is because you can actually cancel these flights as well and get your points back. So they're not very restrictive either. So again, here I've saved over $3,000 on just this flight alone. An $11 business class flight. So here you go. Each ticket was just $5.60. This was a flight that we took that went from Houston, Texas, all the way to Japan, a direct flight. It cost us a fair amount of miles, 15-hour flight. This flight probably would cost about $7,000 to $8,000. We got it for a grand total out of pocket of $11. So you can see why I'm so excited about this strategy. And now I want to share with you some more details on how you can take advantage as well. The first thing is I want to find the best flight routings in advance. I want to know if I need to go from the US to Europe. I like to use a search and start to find some of the direct flights, the best connections. I like to determine if it's best to leave out of my local airport, or maybe from Texas, I get myself to New York, I have a lot better option. Or if I'm going to Asia, maybe I get myself to Los Angeles or San Francisco and then use a reward booking. Before you start to hunt for your point redemptions, you're going to be a lot better off because you'll find out. And when I show you using some of the advanced search engines for points redemptions, the more likely you're going to be able to score, that $11 redemption or the 2 tickets for under 100,000 miles. That's where the value is at. The next thing I'm going to share with you is where to get points. If you don't already have points, I'm going to show you a fairly quick way to get some points. And then we're going to really do sort of the secret sauce, which is how do we save countless hours trying to find the best redemptions. And of course, the fun part of all is taking off on your trip. It sound like a deal? Let's go ahead and first jump over and start to do some of the research on finding the best flight routings. So the way that I do that is really two tools, and it's Google Flights and Skyscanner. These are the two that I use the most. It's probably about an 80-20. Typically with Google Flights, of course, many of you use this. You can search by dates, by ranges, but you can also search by regions. And I'm going to show you a few things that I do to start doing a little bit of quick research. Again, everything I share with you here today just takes minutes. Nothing's going to take you hours. Sometimes I also use Skyscanner because it will dig up some additional routings that Google Flights doesn't always find. So those are my two tools. Let me switch over right now and show you how I use them the quickest way possible. I typically will do one-way trips because I found most of the time when I'm doing mile redemptions, booking them as one-ways works out to be the best overall. It gives me the most options typically. If you want to see what the prices would be for cash, you can always switch this to business. And then this will make sure that the flights that you see as options do have a business class or a first class cabin available. Now, you typically want to start right with the airport, maybe your home airport. In my case, it's Austin, Texas. But part of the exercise here is to find additional possibilities. And let's just say that I'm going to Madrid and I'm going to go ahead and go there in September, just to have an example. And my departure date, one nice thing with Google is immediately it's saying, okay, Austin to Madrid, and it's going to give us an idea of various prices for a single business class ticket. And you can see the price does vary. Like on the 13th, it's $3,300 versus on the 12th, it's $2,590. I can tell you typically, I have found if I focus in on the dates, which have a lower fare overall, when I go to a points and miles redemption, the odds are pretty high that it's going to require less miles on this day than this day. My cheapest day could potentially be Thursday, September 12th. Friday clearly goes up a lot in money before it normalizes on Saturday and Sunday. Even Wednesday is a possibility, certainly going to be better than Friday. Monday looks like it's the cheapest overall when it comes to the fare. So those are some things to think about. That's the type of data that you're starting to think about when you're looking for this sort of routing. So the next thing I'll do is let me go ahead and select, in this case, the 12th. And I'm going to go search. And of course, it's going to search a variety of different options for me. But I always like to filter right away for nonstops. Now, there's obviously, in this case, no nonstops at all to Madrid, which I already know that from Austin, there's not. Then I'm going to go to one stop or fewer. And what I'm looking for here is a couple things. I want to see where they're routing through. So I can, for instance, open this one up and see Frankfurt is where this flight is connecting. So there's a direct from Austin to Frankfurt. That's good information to have because sometimes when you're doing your miles redemption, you may only want to use points for this segment because I have found other times where if I do the connection, suddenly it's not as good of a deal. Like if I find that this combination here requires like 150,000 points, I might find that this here is 70,000. And I could just take a very inexpensive flight inside of Europe. It'll cost me less than $100 for this really easy short portion. So this is, again, some of the research I want to start to understand a bit. Here's another one where you can see we do have a direct from Austin to London Heathrow. And take a little note of when you start to look for various combinations overall. Now, another thing I might do is go like this in Google Flights and type in European continent. So Austin to Europe, basically, on September 12th. And then I can say, all right, in this case, I don't want to have a connection. I want to have only nonstops. This helps a lot because this will then tell me what direct flights that we have possibility from Austin to Europe that are going on that date. And you can see my options are Amsterdam, London, Frankfurt. When I'm doing a mile search, I might look September 12th and I might say, okay, give me Austin to Amsterdam, London, and Frankfurt and check each search because probably one of these is going to be a nice redemption. I don't have to just take the direct flight from there to there. I can also say, okay, let's try this a different way. What about a one stop? So you can see I can get to obviously any place in Europe. But what I find sometimes is when I go over to North America, I might find that the connections end up being in certain airports, such as New York or Washington, D.C. So if I can't find a good points redemption, I really want that lay flat from this part, the long part overseas. I could decide that I'm going to go ahead and get myself from Austin to New York or Washington, D.C., and take the direct flight with points from New York. And now I've got some variables that I can play with when I go over to the point search engine. The reason this is important is because you're going to find sometimes a business class seat might be 40,000 miles. Sometimes they're going to want 400,000 miles. By having more options available, I have a much better chance of getting it down to 200,000, 150,000, 100,000 miles. And now I can get a lot more bang and a lot more value out of my points redemptions. Now I can check Dallas as well. That's also drivable for me. And this is important information to have because it will help me a lot just in case the redemption that I find isn't very good. Here's Madrid. So now what do I know? I know that I have multiple different options. I can go Austin to Frankfurt, Amsterdam, or London direct. That would get me 80% of the way there in the part that matters a lot to me, the lay flat. I can also get myself to New York and then do a direct flight from there. Or in this case, if I go to Dallas, depends, I might even find a direct flight from Dallas directly to Madrid. So you can see why this is such important information. So now I've got really a lot of variables that I can work with. But the secret is next is if I go to each individual airline and start to search for all those combinations, I could spend hours, dozens of hours. I want a big shortcut. I want to be able to do something like Google Flights, but rather than looking for how many dollars it's going to cost, I want to look for how many points it's going to cost. So before we jump over and look for a shortcut to finding a great miles redemption, I want to give you a couple quick tips on getting started. And the first one, this would be the 2-card combo I would recommend that everybody starts with or gets. The first is the Chase Sapphire Preferred. Right now, when I'm recording this, they're offering a 75,000 mile reward bonus. Usually it's 60,000, which is great too. With 75,000 miles, you can book yourself at least one business class ticket if you do a little bit of work, a little bit of effort like I'm showing you here. There's usually a spend requirement over 3-4 months. You need to spend a few $1,000s on the card, but you'll get rewarded with 75,000 miles that you can then use in multiple different airlines portals. It costs just $95 for the year. So obviously, if a business class ticket is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, I'm more than happy to pay the $95 a year. Plus, it comes with all kinds of other travel benefits and perks and ways to earn more miles. The second one is the Capital One Venture X card, the individual card. Right now, they're offering 75,000 reward miles once you complete a spend requirement in the first few months. Now, it's much more expensive. It's $395 for the annual membership, but they give you a $300 travel credit annually. So as long as you charge something else, a hotel, an Airbnb, another flight on the card, they'll credit the first $300 that's travel related, which means you net back down to $95. You have all kinds of extra travel perks. You'll be able to get into lounges they have Capital One Venture X lounges as well, and the same with Chase. So there's many other perks and benefits that you'll get on top of this. But just this alone with these two cards would get you up to about 150,000 miles, which certainly is worth 2 business class tickets. And depending upon how you do it, even up to 3 is a great way to get started without being super complicated. Now, there's many other cards. There's many different strategies, but I wanted to just give you a simple one to jumpstart you. Now, the reason that I recommend like the Chase card, the Capital One, the American Express card, and not individual airline cards like the United card or the American card, they're okay, but you're boxed in. If you get a card where you get a mileage bonus on American Airlines or United, then you're boxed into that airline or maybe the Alliance. When you use Chase or Capital One and you get points that way, you can then transfer them in typically to a dozen plus airlines, multiple alliance partners. You have way more options available to you. And why that's going to be really important is when you go ahead and we start to look for points, we want as many possibilities as possible. Now, you could definitely do this research on your own. You can go into every airline portal. You can look and try to understand all the rules, all the alliances. You can one by one change the dates, the departure, the arrival. This is the way I used to have to do it. In fact, I used to sometimes hire somebody to do it for me. It took that much work and effort to get to the booking. But now we can do most of all of this that would take hours or paying somebody to do it. You can get it done in just a few minutes. So let's go ahead and show you how it's done. My recommendation is to use point.me. That's the website. And if you go to point.me, you are going to be able to do some free searches. And there's something called Get a Quick Look, where if there was a recent search, you can actually just click this and it'll show you those results. I prefer the paid program. You can actually get this for $12 for a month. Think about it this way. If you're doing your searching and you're looking to get a business class ticket, you could subscribe for a single month, pay $12, and theoretically, you can save $3,000 to $8,000, like I showed you with my examples, and just cancel after the month if you're not going to be booking another flight for a while. Keep in mind that this search engine is going to search through 30 plus different loyalty programs and over 100 different airlines. Let that sink in for a moment. How long would it take you with all the different variables to search through that many? It would take a ridiculous amount of time. And the reason this is important is because in my example, I'm using a really hard redemption. I'm going out of a small airport as far as international flights go. Austin only has a handful. I'm trying to go to Madrid, which is certainly not London. Heathrow, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Paris, those are always going to be easier. If I'm looking for something from New York to Paris or to London Heathrow, and I have a lot of time in advance, I'm going to get a lot of great options. You want to do this early. Don't wait. In this case, when I'm recording this, looking at September 12th, it's only a few months away. So my options, I know already, are probably going to be very limited in this exact flight. I'm going to have to show some flexibility. If you want to have way more options, I recommend you look at least 6 months out, up to even 10 to 11 months out. Then also use the research we came up with in the prior section when we saw that we could change the dates and potentially see some better redemptions, even changing airports. You can go ahead and put in which programs you have, which loyalty programs, and then when the search results come up, you can say, only show me results that I can use my Capital One points, my Chase points, or as you can see, you can put in all types of different programs. So if you happen to have Aeroplan miles, or you happen to have American Express membership rewards, when the results come up, we can sort only by the ones that we can personally use. Plus later, we'll be able to say one stop, two stops, direct, all that sort of thing. So let's just go ahead and put Austin to Madrid. I want business, and I'm going to go ahead and search. And you're going to see a few things happen here. It's going to start the search. And down here, it's going to be searching through 30 different loyalty programs across 150 different airlines. Again, this would take you probably a couple hours to come up with these results. Now, I'll pause for the moment because it's going to take a minute or two. We have some good news and we have some bad news. We absolutely can get a business class flight. We can get a business class flight for $6. That's pretty fantastic. The bad news is it's going to take a lot of points, 400,000 points. I've never really made a redemption with that many miles. I don't want to give up that many. That's quickest flights. Now, I may want to sort by points because I don't mind layovers and everything if I'm going to be able to go on a business class flight. Now, the great news is just by sorting, I still have one-stop flights. My flights are still going to cost me just $6 in taxes. And I went from 400,000 points all the way down to 245,000 points. Now, it's still a pretty expensive redemption, but right just from doing this, I've cut in half practically the number of points required. Now, what you can also do in Point.me is pull this over, and it's only going to show you ones that your programs, and if you remember in my example, I was only saying I had points through Chase Ultimate Rewards and through Capital One. If I had points on American Airlines or I had American Express membership, I could tag all those and I would get more options. But in this case, the great news is I can fly business class for $6. The bad news is I still need a lot of points, but this is a great flight, in this case, connecting through Newark. Now, one little trick is I could probably also look and see your Newark to Madrid and see sometimes what you're going to find is the points will maybe get cut in half. I don't know if that's the case in this example, but it'd be worth trying. And again, if I had to do all this myself and go into United Airlines and all the other airlines, it would take a long time. But it's fairly easy with Point.me to say, you know what? What if I got myself to Newark and I took that direct flight from Newark to Madrid? It's possible that the miles redemption would be lost. But still, this is pretty high. So it looks like I'm going to have some more flexibility in general to find flights. Now, I could go ahead and check with, we noticed, remember before, there was a direct flight from Dallas to Madrid on this date. I could absolutely check that to see, possibly, if there was a lower mileage redemption. I could try from, for instance, JFK from New York as well as Newark to Madrid direct, and then just either pay for a cheaper flight to New York City or use points on a different redemption for an economy ticket. It's another idea. We had direct flights from Austin to London Heathrow, to Frankfurt and Amsterdam. I could check those as well. So now you can see you've got some variables you can check. Normally, this would be a nightmare to have to check on your own, but using Point.me, you could actually open up multiple tabs at once and have these scanning 5, 6 different options. It'll take a minute or two, but then you start to know, okay, now I'm starting to get some options here overall. What I want to do is I want to try some different dates because I remember the 17th of September and the 24th, I had some little less expensive tickets if you were to buy them. So that gives me an idea that there might be a better chance that I can find a cheaper redemption than this. I don't mind paying more cash in taxes if I can get this to come down quite a bit. So let's see if we can do that. All right, so I went ahead and said, what if I went from Dallas to Madrid? Because I remember there were some direct flights, so I thought that was a possibility. And I moved the date a little bit forward up to a couple weeks later, September 24th, which I remember there were some little better fares. Now, the good news, once again, is I can get on a direct flight for $6 out of Dallas. Very easy for me from Austin to get to Dallas. And I've got the points now down to 214,000. So that's starting to be a little bit more compelling. But let's go ahead and take a look on a sort if we go from low to high. So now look what's happened. Now you can see 88,000 points and only $23. Now this becomes a really great redemption. Now, look, it does come with a little extra effort. Now, in this case, I'm going to have two stops. That's not my ideal by any means. But again, to fly for $23 on business class, that's very compelling. Now, it tells me that it's a mixed class ticket, which means one leg of this probably is going to be an economy. So I don't want the long leg to be an economy. And in this case, it's not. Just from Dallas to Montreal, which is only a few hour flight, that's going to be in economy. I could live with that because then from Montreal to Zurich, I'm going to be in business class. And from Zurich to Madrid, I'm going to be in business class again. So now we've done, just by being a little flexible, using Point.me, I've gotten my redemption all the way down to 88,000 points and just $23. Cut my redemption from 215,000 points down to 88,000. Now I've got a ticket that's probably $4,000 and I'm going to pay just $23 in taxes for it. And I was able to achieve something very similar. And in this case, I was able to do it out of Austin. But now I don't even have to get myself to Dallas. So sure, I'm going to have the two stops, but I'm going to be able to do it directly out of my home airport. I had to change the date just a few days earlier, April 8th. And I want to make sure I match my programs because these I don't have access to. I have a nice option. 88,000 points, right? Very similar, just $13 in taxes. So my out of pocket, $13. And it would be just 88,000 miles. And I go in Austin and I go to Chicago to Istanbul and then Istanbul to Madrid. Now let's make sure that we're mostly in business. And we are. We're just in the short flight, 2 hours and change from Austin to Chicago, economy, no problem. Then I fly on Turkish Airlines, right? A great airline, an amazing business class product from Chicago to Istanbul in business class. And then I take a connection in Istanbul, great airport, by the way, to Madrid. That's just a few hours, also in business class. And there we have it. We've done it. In case you're wondering, I have multiple dates that I can choose from. Yes, I couldn't do it on September 12th, but I found it again on September 24th. Pretty much the same redemption. In this case, it's going to be the two stops, but again, out of my home airport, I don't have to go anywhere. I fly into Canada and then I take Zurich to Madrid. So just like that Dallas flight, I don't even now need to drive to Dallas. I can take a same flight into Montreal, but just come out of Austin instead. So I save myself a 3-hour drive. It's still only going to cost me $23, 88,000 points. Now, yeah, there's a lot of more expensive redemptions. And if I pick the quickest for $6, that's amazing. But it's going to cost me 305,000 points. If you did this on your own, airline by airline, you might find a lot of these very expensive redemptions. In my case, I now have multiple ways of doing it. One more final example I want to show you on this is I said, can I find anything else on April 12th, my original intended flight date? And sure enough, just using the research we did before from Dallas to Madrid, I was able to find the non-stop flight for 63,000 points. Now, a little bit of a catch. It's going to cost me some higher tax amounts because some airlines charge you more tax. But again, for a direct flight, for just 63,000 points, I could get two tickets for 126,000. Yes, I'm going to have to upfront a bit more cash, but $750 gets me there. This ticket alone, probably again, $3,000 to $5,000. So to pay just $750, get the exact date that I want, get a direct flight, no connections. All I need to do is get to Dallas. There's no way I would have found this on my own. But by using this step-by-step process, it took me probably to do these various searches about 15 minutes. 15 minutes, and I've saved myself thousands of dollars and used my points for the highest possible redemption and pretty much got the exact flight that I wanted. Pretty cool. All right, so that was a lot of fun. So I want to give you some more search engines that you potentially can use. We mentioned, of course, Point.me, but there are several others that you can certainly compare. Seats.aero, Pointsia.com, and Rome Travel, and I've got the websites here. You certainly can experiment with these. I've had the best success overall with Point.me, but it doesn't mean that if you try another one, it's possible it comes up with a combination that is better. If you, for instance, were to use Google Flights and Skyscanner, which I didn't have a lot of time to spend in this video, but I'll do a future video. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get that, where I show you some really cool hacks and tricks and tips that you can do in Google Flights as well as with Skyscanner. But you never know, you might find a better redemption. So definitely experiment a little bit. My favorite so far definitely is Point.me. I get to check over 100 different partners. Sometimes I even see the retail price so I can see how good the value is. And it even gives me help in completing the booking, going directly to the reward site. A few extra quick tips I'll put here on the screen. Definitely maximize your points earning potential. If your card gives you 3x or 5x points on travel, then put the travel charges on that card. If another one gives you 10x on dining, put your restaurant charges on that card. This way you'll get more points. And as you see, points are fun, right? Points get you around the world in business class, or if you prefer economy, premium economy, whatever you want to do, you have those options. You can go down a deep rabbit hole with the points hacking game. I tried to give you a strategy here that was really simple, really straightforward. One way to play around and again, get some really good ideas is use Daydream Explorer at pointsia.com. So let's take a look at that. Just come to Pointsia and then go to Daydream Explorer. And what I can do here is I can have some fun. I can say, you know what, I want to fly out of, I can put US and I can go anywhere, but I'm going to go in this case, let's say Europe. And maybe you've got some flexibility. You're just looking for an amazing points redemption. You're not exactly sure where you want to go. You're not really tied in anywhere. And I'm going to give it a, little bigger date range. And I'm going to say, in my case, you can do economy or premium economy, and you're going to find some really amazing redemptions. But I'm going to say, let's just do it in style and look for business class only. So right away, it's starting to show me what is possible from, in this case, Philadelphia. I can go in business class to Milan for just 77,000 miles. Philadelphia to London for 57,000 miles. Here's Newark to Amsterdam, 71,000 miles. So you can start to see what is possible with redemptions. Maybe you want to go out just from your home airports, or perhaps you're a little flexible. Hey, I can get up to New York pretty easy from where I'm at, and then go ahead and do a further search on that. We can even get it down New York to Nice, France, the south of France, for just 58,000 miles. So you start to see what's possible here just by doing this. This also helps you understand what redemptions might cost. And you can even say maximum taxes, I don't want to pay more than $500. So that starts to lower down the potential out of pocket in cash. A little bit of daydreaming, but it's also starting to help you understand where are some places you can go in that October, November date range in business class from the States to Europe or Asia. And you can start to look for sorts by the lowest possible. It gives you a good idea of what you may want to pay. I can also sort by low to high. Dallas to Madrid, right, for 42,000 points if you leave on the right day. In this case, in November, even a lower redemption than we talked about earlier, just by pushing your departure date a bit. New York to England, 45,000 points. New York to Lisbon, with just 45,000 points. You can see why I say if you have 150,000 points, you certainly can get 3, even up to 4 business class tickets, depending upon when you go and your routing. All right, so have a lot of fun with it. I put together these tips and these tutorials so you don't have to spend hundreds of hours trying to learn point hacking. You can literally just follow what I did in the video, and you're going to be better off than most people. You'll be able to find some great deals and get started. That's the key. Get started, get some credit cards, get some sign-up bonuses, start to spend in the right categories and the right cards. And you can do this in economy tickets, premium economy. You don't have to do business class by any means. You can even transfer points to hotels. So there's a lot of options, a lot available, but just have a lot of fun with it. If this was helpful, if you learned a few things from this, please give the video a like. Please subscribe to the channel. I plan on doing more tutorials and tips just like this that I've used over the years in our travels to over 90 countries. I want to share more of those hacks and strategies with you. So subscribe to the channel. That would be great. And leave down below in your comments any questions you have. More than happy to answer those. I go through the comments. And also, if you have some success, if you find a really good points redemption, share that as well. That's pretty exciting for me to see, as well as everybody else watching the video. All right, enjoy your travels. Take care, everybody. Back with you soon.